Okay, we're at the Heirloom Festival 2015, and we're here with the young generation of 16-year-olds and their ideas about GMO, genetically modified organisms, and what they know about it and what they're doing about it. So we've already spoken to you, and your name is?
Rachel Parent.
Okay, and you're a spokesperson, and you're in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And the main thing that you want to tell people about what you're doing is?
Well, I'd like people to be, first of all, informed about GMOs, and I think that's a big part of what we're doing is trying to create awareness, but also to demand GMO labeling, simply so that we all have the right to know what's in our food.
And if we do not get the GMO labeling what we want, what should we do about that in the way of trying to find out what is in the food that we're eating? I was told today earlier by Jeffrey Smith that there's cross-contamination, so it's good to eat organic food, but it's not going to be, we'll still get some of the GMO in our food.
Well, the best way to avoid GMOs are to avoid anything containing corn, canola, soy, vegetable oil, high fructose corn syrup, Hawaiian papaya, and yellow squash and zucchini. Those are the main GMO crops that you would want to avoid. The next thing is, like you said, buy organic. That's a great solution, although I know that not everyone can afford it immediately. It is expensive. But what I have noticed from experience is that when you buy organics, you don't have to buy as much. It's more filled with nutrition. You get fuller faster, and you end up using more. When you buy regular conventional food that's cheaper, you end up throwing out more of the food that you buy.
All right. Introduce yourselves, please.
My name is Birke. I'm 16 years old, and I live in Asheville, North Carolina.
Okay.
I'm Jade Engelman, and I'm 15 years old, and I live in Asheville, North Carolina.
Okay. Now, what do you know about genetically modified organism, GMO, and why do you care about it?
I've been researching GMOs and genetically modified organisms for the past 8 years, and I've been an activist for the past 5. I feel it's so important to know what's in our food.
So
and
when
what
you say research, you're 16.
I'm 16, so I've been researching the food system since I was 8 years old. I actually
that's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to stop and think about that.
It is.
So at 8 years old, everybody else is playing on the PlayStations and not interested in anything of such a serious topic.
Yeah.
So how did you get involved as at 8 years old?
I originally came across an article on the internet that stated mercury was found in high fructose corn syrup. And I knew what mercury was from 3rd grade science and that I could kill you, but I had no clue what high fructose corn syrup was. Mm-hmm. So my first common sense was, ask Mom, she knows. And my mom said that it was a sweetener used in sodas. And it was like the first epiphany, light bulb above the head moment that was like, why is there something that can kill us in our food? And so from that, I started researching high fructose corn syrup and came across things like GMOs, pesticides, herbicides, chemical fertilizers, and the list goes on. And so from that, I found GMOs and was completely astounded at the fact that something so crazy and with common sense tells me that there's something wrong here. And so after researching GMOs, it told me that I needed to go and start speaking about it and creating more awareness around the subject.
So what happens when you talk to your friends and they're all going to McDonald's and Kentucky Fried Chicken and fast food nation as they are, and your friends say what to you?
I've had so many friends on the different sides of the scale. I've had friends that have grown up with healthy eating families where they started eating organic since they were little, and I have other friends who basically get home from school, start eating Cheetos and playing the Xbox all day. So I feel like one of the biggest things is to just make it a very simple topic that's we're messing with food and we don't know how to control it, and that it's to the point where it's messing with our bodies, and scientific studies have shown that down 2 or 3 generations in the lab mice studies, especially with Dr. Seralini and those studies also, they show that they affect us way down the line. Rather than the human generations, it takes so much longer for us to mature and repopulate that we haven't seen the effects fully on our population yet.
So when we speak about the lab experiments on GMO and you look at those videos, it's pretty gross.
Yeah.
I mean, the huge tumors
of course,
that are happening. But we've been eating GMO. The nation has been eating it for at least a decade plus. Yep. So what are we seeing there? Have you had personal experiences where you have seen families coming with tumors and cancer and all digestive disorders and such that can be linked to GMO?
We're finally starting to see the effects of that. After the past 20 years, since the early 90s when GMOs were introduced, we're finally starting to see the effects of the next generations.
So what have you seen personally?
Personally, I've seen the rise of things like diabetes. Cancer has come up exponentially in the past 20 years. We see more and more people have allergies, things to corn, soy, cotton, and canola, some of the 4 largest GMO crops, and we continue to see more and more health defects.
So when you say personally, have you seen this in your family or friends of your families?
I've seen this personally in my family. I had a grandmother who passed away from lung cancer 3 years ago, and so seeing that was especially one of those things that was like, wow, you know, having a direct connection to something that could have easily been food.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me what your experience.
Well,
Your name, please.
my name's Jade Engelman, and I'm 15.
Mm-hmm.
And my personal experience is, for a few years back, I used to be very into, I had no idea what GMO was. It just, three little letters that I heard a lot, didn't really know what it meant. And I'd known that my mom was really big into it. She works with Demeter, the biodynamic certifiers of the U.S.
When you say really big into it, meaning that your mother was what?
It is, she is highly aware of what is GMO and what is not GMO.
So she doesn't serve this GMO food at home and has not
No,
and would not.
no, definitely not. Now, she does allow us to make our own choices, and she warns us of all these chemicals and different things that are in these GMO foods and pesticides. And she says, it's up to your own health. She told me that that might give you a minute of pleasure, but you're going to have a lifetime of pain if you keep eating that way. And it's just a really painful experience to see other people like go through that. And the reason why I used to eat a lot of GMO is I lived with my dad, and he doesn't have like a full comprehension of what it is, and it's just it's kind of like, you know, your normal American family with they just don't have very much knowledge on what's in their food. And
So when you say full comprehension, he had some comprehension, which leads me to think that perhaps he just dismissed it and wasn't interested in the possibilities of the harm of it.
he didn't really take it as such a big problem.
A seriousness to
Yeah,
it.
he just saw it more of a choice, and you know, the food's a little more expensive. And when you live in a really small town and you're not making much, the first thing that comes to your mind is, I'm going to buy the cheapest thing. But in the long run, buying the more expensive thing is really where it's going to help you, because if you buy the cheap food, later on you're going to be paying thousands and thousands of dollars in health care and trying to protect your family from, you know, like all these different diseases and things that you get from eating GMO.
Are your parents together?
No.
Okay, I have a sense that they were separated, and that's where you're going with that. So when you were at home with your mother, you were 100% conscious, and the GMO, you were very aware, but your father was not. So when you went to visit your father, he was serving up all different kinds of food. So how did he take to you saying, no, at times I don't want to eat that. I prefer the way my mother is eating and the kind of food that I eat with her. Was he taking an issue to that, or did he go along with it, or
Well,
was there a concern about that?
actually, I recently moved in with my mom like a year and a half ago. So I used to live with her up until I was, you know, like when I was 10. And then I moved into my dad's house for about 5 years and then came back. And while I was a kid, she wasn't as aware of it as she was before, or as she is now. And so we didn't really see much. She did understand organic, but she didn't take it in like to where it was an effect of the family. And when I moved to my dad's, it just, like I said, it stayed to where like the GMO wasn't really a big deal, or organic food. And when I moved back here, I really started to understand, and all the things that I was able to eat with my father and at his house is, whenever I eat it, I just can't. My body completely just gets rid of it, and it feels awful after eating it. Well, as opposed to that,
And where do
I
you
used
feel
to be
awful in your body with it? If
in
you're
my
eating
stomach.
GMO?
My
Your
energy
stomach
is
area
extremely
and-
low.
Yes.
And you get zits all over your face. You know, I mean,
You mean a breakout all
yeah,
over?
Yeah. Normally would never get that
Okay.
today, but if I ever have like if I'm ever given like a soda or something, and if I have that, I just instantly break out. So it really shows that it's not meant for your body. And I'm glad that I have the new comprehension of what GMOs and these pesticides and all these things that people are putting in our food and won't tell anybody. It's killing people from the inside out. You can look up a million different things and like proof and videos of families switching over to just organic for a little while, and they show the amount of pesticides and like these awful toxins and metals just drop. So
Well, what final thoughts do you all have to share with the listeners who, some of them, they're all at different stages. Some know a little bit about genetically modified organism, Monsanto. Some know a lot more. And so how do we deal with this? Where they're seeing that the importance that they're not really concerned about it. And you know that there's dire consequences, and it's the most serious topic that we could have.
this is the only thing they care about is money.
Meaning?
Monsanto and these companies that promote this, they only are concerned about money. And actually, I'll tell you a quick story that if you've seen OMG or GMO OMG, that's a movie. If you haven't seen that, I'd go watch it. But this man goes into Monsanto and asks them what their thoughts are on GMO, and they kicked him out. They didn't talk to him. They asked him to leave right away, and within a matter of seconds.
Well, I've heard that at the cafeteria at Monsanto, the food, they do not eat genetically modified organism. They eat organic there. So whether that's true or not,
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know about that.
All right.
But if they do, that's very ironic, and they're basically lying to the whole human race that the only way that we're going to be able to sustain ourselves and feed 7 billion, growing 7 billion people is with these genetically modified things. And they keep lying to the human race and keep telling them that this is the only way when there's so many different other ways of sustainable growing, and how irrigation could be completely used in a different way to conserve water in deserty places like California where there's droughts. They were able to prevent those droughts with just a little bit of awareness and ways to like integrate water into our soil in a different way than just spraying everything with. It gets complicated, but there's a way.
And what are your final thoughts?
I feel like the most important thing we can do as consumers is protect our own human sovereignty as making food an integral part of our everyday life. As we sit around, so many people have this underrating aspect of food that they don't think much about it rather than how cheap it is or where they can buy it at the least expensive and quickest time period they can get it at. So I feel what we need to do is we need to create the connections of getting back deeply rooted into our food, talking to farmers, talking to your friends and family, sharing food and making it a social aspect so deeply that people care more and more about the subject, and researching more and more into food.
Getting back to our basics.
Getting back to our roots. Yeah, we were an agriculture society when we first started in this country. Everybody was a farmer, and now our population is less than 1% of farmers.
How many years ago do you think that was? Because the industrial farming started in the 50s.
It started, I believe that we've gotten away from our farming culture during the Industrial Revolution.
At what point?
Late 1800s, turn of the century.
Okay.
And then you see, I've read actually old agricultural school book manuals from the state of Tennessee from the early 1900s. And the type of farming they talk about is so in symbiosis and synergy with the earth that it's almost exactly what they talk about, like biodynamic farming in many ways. So that they were already doing this hundreds of years ago. We've just lost our way. So it's time to get connected with the roots again of where we started at as a culture.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
And what's your final thought?
Well, just for everyone out there who's listening, even if the topic of GMOs isn't your interest, and even if you know about the health and environmental risks and you're still not interested, please still take action, because it's not just about you. It may not affect you right now, but it is affecting us the future, and it is affecting us not only in the future, but it's affecting us now. We're seeing a huge rise in allergies, digestive disorders, organ damage that we never saw in kids our age before. So we need everyone to stand up and take action, not just for themselves, but for the future. And everybody has incredible power to make a difference in this world. You just have to believe you do and get out there. There are so many things you can do. Get petitions signed, tell your friends, your family, your neighbors. Get out there onto the streets, protest. I mean, the possibilities are endless. You can send letters to your local member of parliament.
And exactly in a nutshell, what are we telling them and what are we protesting?
All right, you're protesting to have GMOs labeled or off your plates, and what we want you to do is get out there and stand up for us, the future.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Well, it's a great inspiration here. Indeed, I'm so inspired, and I'm hoping that there's many, many, many more people like yourself of your generation to speak up and to be aware and to care. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Pleasure talking to you.